Uh, greetings, 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 greetings. It is I, your king, King Clifford Jefferson, a Senator Godfrey, the fifth Caliban Jew, son of folk, ruler of Jerusalem. I'm the reincarnation of King Edgar the Peaceful, which we here at the Third Temple English Church of England refer to as Jesus Christ, the Anointed One. It is July 9th, 2024, which is the birth year 2974. I greet you in the name of all the martyrs, the saints, our predecessors, our ancestors, our successors, our heirs, our descendants, and all the above. This is a marvelous day. We know that this is a time for elections, all right? And we know elections are unconstitutional. Elections are created by way of administrative law, which is the function for your cabinet, known as your presidency, which got its start from the parliament, or as we should say, King Parliament, and that we will verify today. So today's lecture is a very good lecture, and all those who are cognate or conscious should understand what it is that I'm speaking today, because your very lives depend on it. All right? Whether you choose the Democratic or Republican Party, choosing either in this day and time, you will be screwed. Not because I say so, but because the Crown says so, according to New Jersey's Constitution. All right? A lot of people out there think that the Third Typical English Church of England is a joke. It's play. It's just like any other platform that you see on YouTube. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's not. It is a political society. It is a body of politics. All right? It is a social compact. All right? I'm going to show you this. And if you can't see this with your conscious cognitive faculties, because you haven't been using that thus far. All right. We can't rely on our sensory perceptions. All right. What make us feel good. All right. This choice must be made today. Either you're going to choose the king or you're going to choose doom. All right. That's why it's called the Doomsday Book. It's called the Day of Judgment. And the day of judgment is now upon you. You're going to hear it from your representatives, okay? You're going to hear it from your representatives. You know, I always like to get a narrative. So I'm going to play the narrative, and hopefully I won't have any problems in um, the, the, the vocals. My moderator, Archbishop Belmont, is here as well. So I just want to give honor, but ain't no honor like give honor to the Queen, Sister Galveston from the House of Galveston, but she's the soil in which I was able to plant myself in and be able to receive these jewels. I'm going to give honor to Archbishop Belmont, Bishop Searcy. I want to give a special honor to Brother Milligan from the House of Milligan for his assistance, for his air, for his donations, pretty much everything that he does for not just me, the king, but for the Third Typical English Church of England. Just by spreading the word, just by being loyal, okay? Just by paying a homage, all right? So I want to give a special homage to you, Brother Milligan, and this lesson is for you. This lesson is pretty much going to be tailored from Sunday's lesson in regards to the Chevron deference. And we know the Chevron deference was a decision made by the Supreme Court in regards to the authority that was given to the administrative agencies, which are the departments created by the executive branch. All right, and that being the ability to be able to interpret the statutory language when the statutory language is ambiguous, and which the Supreme Court has, through the Chevron deference or the Chevron doctrine, has allowed if any statute is ambiguous based upon the court's interpretation, that they are to go with the administrative agency's interpretation, even though their interpretation might be different. Okay? And this is what you have by way of the creation of the Democratic and Republican Party. Because we know that the executive department has the authority to influence the legislative and the judiciary. All right? As a result of what we call the New Deal. Okay? The New Deal. All right? It's very important that you comprehend what's being said to you, because if you go vote for any party, Democratic or Republican, all right, you have chosen your destiny. All right? You have chosen your destiny. If you choose to support your king, then you will be rewarded. Okay? You should be rewarded, because I'm pretty sure in that box they have others that you can select. Okay, other than the primaries that are there, you can select within that primary somebody that you seem fit to fit that description or that office or that title of that encumbrance that in all out return be able to speak on your behalf. They're called representatives. All right. So it's very, very important that you pay close attention to today's lessons. I promise I won't hold you long. I'll try to be brief, but at the same time, I must make sure that when it's received, it must be received in whole. So with that, we get started with this marvelous lesson. Archbishop, make sure that if you can't hear this video that's going to be played, please let me know in the chat box so I can make sure that I make the necessary appropriations. All right, so with that, we get started. If there's any question, please post them in the chat. The Jersey Vindicator. All right. I actually reached out to them today in regards to this Zoom meeting that was actually um went underway on July 8th, 2024. Actually, it was yesterday. All right, with Governor Tom King weighing on his thoughts on the democracy in New Jersey, but not just New Jersey, but the nation as a whole. Okay, it's very important that we reflect upon Governor Tom King's interpretation of the health of the democracy in New Jersey as well as in the nation, based off the prior setup of what we call the administrative government that we have now, prior to the predecessor that was there before it, and the transition of from the one you got now back to the former. Okay, that's what's going on. They're not going to tell you that because it will be detrimental to them as a result of exposing the agenda, what they call it, what they call it, what's it, something 2025, what they call that, Project 2025. All right, they want to make this a minority, all right, aristocracy, all right, but they want the president to fill that gap. Okay, when that's not the case. That's not the case. The president can never fill that gap. I'm going to show you why. Okay, so everybody please pay close attention. We're going to read an excerpt, and then we're going to actually listen to the verbalage of the actual information that we're reading here on what we call New Jersey Vindicator. And like I said, I reached out to them earlier today by way of what we call email and gave them the invitation in regards to if they really wanted an answer to the questions that were posed to Governor King, they should reach out to the Third English Church of England, where they can get a concrete answer based off the real problem of why the nation, as well as New Jersey's democracy, is at an all-time halt. Okay? It's at an all-time halt. So without further ado, let's get started. New Jersey Vindicator. Tom King was elected New Jersey's governor in 1981. With the slimmest margin of victory in the state history, he was reelected 4 years later in the most lopsided victory ever. Today, he is widely considered to be New Jersey's most popular, respected governor of all time. There are several reasons for this: his intelligence, was unassuming, his candor was consistent and non-threatening, and his sense of descending was abiding. Decency was abiding. He believed in compromise and transparency. Okay, transparency. Now, this happens to be an argument brought forth by Tom King about the non-transparency that the democracy has in this present day, not just in New Jersey, but as well as with the nation. And this is the purpose and intent for the overruling of the Chevron deference that we talked about in my prior podcast. All right, very important you understand that. So the Jersey Vindicator thought it was good. It was a good time to check in with King on his assessment of the health of the democracy in New Jersey, as well as in the country. As a starting point, we were particularly interested in his take on recent developments that have been eroding governmental transparency in the state. Okay, like last month, legislative overhaul of the state's Open Public Record Act, OPRA, despite an outpouring of protests that the new law diminished the public ability to access governmental documents. Two, in last year's controversial reconstruction of the State Election Law Enforcement Commission, ELECT, a new law dramatically raised campaign contribution limits and drastically cuts the time frame for the commission to investigate violations. Right? In a Zoom interview, King explained how those two events are the most recent result of the disturbing downward spiral in New Jersey. In general, I think the state of transparency is getting worse as the years go on because I think public officials are finding different ways in order to be less transparent, he said. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. He didn't expound upon that, but it was a whole reason for that, and that's the reason for that is the creation of the administrative law and administrative courts and administrative judges and administrative administrative courts, administrative law, and administrative judges. All right, it's very important. All this was done through what we call the executive department because the executive department, i.e., the president, the head man in charge, i.e., the figurehead, or what we call the one sitting on the throne, has the ability to influence the legislative as well as the judiciary as a result of what we call the Chevron deference doctrine. Okay? The Chevron deference doctrine. All right. So King then proceeded to break it all down in detail how New Jersey and America, for that matter, has lost its way in a post-press world of unbending partisan hostility fed by huge sums of dark money and misinformation. All of this has made him worry about democracy in the future. At one point, he was asked point blank, how much trouble are we in as a democracy? Without pausing, he replied, we're in a lot of trouble. Okay? Everybody hear that? He said, we're in a lot of trouble. All right, well, how we know he said that? The editor or the INT Sherman probably just put those words in there. Well, let's hear it out of his own mouth. Hopefully, we won't have any problem with the vocal.
What is your overall assessment of accountability and transparency of public officials in New Jersey?
In general, I think the state of transparency is worse than it used to be. It's gotten worse as the years go on because I think public officials are finding different ways in order to be less transparent. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. One of the most important reasons is the press corps. We do not have the press corps we used to have. It's 17 daily papers, all had bureaus in Trenton, all of them covering the governor every single day. And if that governor wasn't transparent or the legislature wasn't transparent, they would have one. Now we have any really first-class papers. The few we have left don't really have the personnel to pick up a Trenton the way they used to. Right. So that's one big reason. The second is that I think, particularly since we've had one-party rule. We've had for a while now. Because there's no checks and balances between the legislature and the governor and for some time. That hurts transparency. And so we've seen a number of occasions where I think if the opposition party, in this case the Republican Party, was opposing, wanted more transparency, but they didn't have the votes to make it happen. And so the result is we've got less transparency. There are other reasons. Those are probably the big two.
So, but why is there less bipartisanship in New Jersey now than ever?
One is there's a national trend. Unfortunately, New Jersey is part of the other 50 states, part of the nation, and we have less bipartisanship. We have more anger on both sides. We have less compromise, and it's unfortunate. This country was created by compromise. Without compromise, it would not be union. And recently, the compromise has become a dirty word, and people don't want to do it anymore. They don't have to do it, and therefore they fight instead of compromise.
So you think it's more of an outgrowth of the mood and the tone that is set in Congress that has trickled down
in Congress, and in the press. I mean, it's a decent question to ask is, can you have a real democracy without a common source of information? When I was young, Walter Cronkite said something on the news, and everybody believed it one over the next issue. Well, we don't have that kind of trusted source anymore. So I think I think that's a great loss. You read something that confirms your own view. You could serve 50, you could serve the press, the liberal press. You watch terrible things on the internet. Don't seem to have truth to either side. But there isn't any common source of information, and that's bad.
The most recent things regarding transparency and accountability legislatively have been the recent changes in Oprah and the recent changes in the e-letter laws. What is your analysis of those two things?
Well, those are unfortunate changes in my mind because they lessen transparency. But again, there aren't the checks and balances to stop that. There is a strong press. I mean, if that had happened when I was governor, the Star Ledger, which had 9 or 10 reporters alone, the Star Ledger at that point, would have been after. And not only that, in those days, everybody read the Ledger. I could have read one of the good papers in the state. And if that paper went after you, you were in trouble.
Is there a specific anecdote that comes to mind about the press keeping you honest?
I can give you a good example. I mean, for instance, when I ran for governor, I spent a lot of time at the editorial boards because the endorsement of papers in 17 of it was very, very important. I went to post-election state history. I was endorsed by 17 out of the 18 New Jersey newspapers, including the New York Times. And election was so close, I think without those endorsements, I think it would have been a different winner. It was important. And when they felt strongly about something, so Ledger, which I think that's very good paper walked by. When they cared about something, it went on the front pages. So if you were trying to lessen transparency, there'd be front page articles, not only Monday, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday, Tory. And in those days, parties changed back and forth. They controlled the legislature one year, but Democrats, next year, by the Republicans, Thursday, one house, one party, one house, the other. And when you had that kind of change, it mattered what the opposition party said, because they were probably going to be in power at least sometime in the next 2 or 3 years. And so you respected them and listened to them. And I was on the legislature, I was majority leader, minority leader, speaker, whatever. Because course, parties change back and forth, my position changed back and forth, but the Democrats respected me in part because they knew they got to deal with me because I was probably going to be back in power in the next couple of years. Same, I respected Democratic leadership for the same reason that they were going to be back in power in the next couple of years. So he could just run roughshod over them like we can now. It doesn't matter if the Democrats in New Jersey, I want the Republicans, so they haven't been in power in a long time. Possible it could take the next governorship, but it's uphill.
And as I recall, back in your day, there were actually like vigorous debates on the floor of the legislature that shaped policy.
Yeah, but there was very vigorous debate, but there was debate with respect, and we liked each other. And we went to each other's weddings, each other's funerals, each other's spouses, and that continued. I mean, some of the people who served in the other party in the legislature I was governor are still close friends, and we still get together and still see each other. And for years, the most vigorous debate my entire time in the legislature was over the state income tax. The state was bitterly divided in that subject. Parties were bitterly divided. And the legislature fought over that for months, years ago. And but we got together once every other year, that legislature. We'd have a dinner together in New Brunswick for 20 or 25 years, just to get together because we were friends, talk about old times, talk about our battles on the floor. They used to invite me as governor, they'd invite Brendan Byrne as governor, and we'd talk about old times.
Same thing you see in court.
That's what you want.
Yeah, I guess you can't legislate decency and respect, can you?
No, you can't legislate that, but it's the way democracy works. And without it, I say this nationally, in New Jersey, what happens? If you don't have respect, you can't deal with each other with respect and as friends, then you get much less accomplished. I mean,
And the public is not going to respect you.
No, that's right. The public, when you don't respect each other, the public loses respect, then the public takes sides, and they join the fight. And it's a sad spectacle. And I was governor for 8 years. I never had a Republican state senate the whole 8 years, and they didn't block one single measure, not a single one. They overrode me on one bill in the 8 years. It's a bill that I thought should be tested in the courts. So I encouraged them to provide me so it could be tested in the courts. But
what was it?
It was school prayer. The Democratic legislature passed a bill allowing prayer in schools. Yeah, my attorney general told me it was unconstitutional. So I vetoed it because it was unconstitutional. And one of the legislators came to me in a very nice way, friends for years, Democrat, came to me and said, "Would you mind if we overrode you?" That was a different atmosphere. "Would you mind?" And I said, "No, because I think we should test the Constitution. So why can't we test the courts?" And I was right, and it was overthrown on the courts.
Well, you're right for now. We'll see what happens. We're starting to put up the 10 Commandments.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll see how long you were right.
That's right. I'm trying to make it happen.
I understand.
But the atmosphere we had then in the legislature, why we were able, both parties got a lot done. Brendan Byrne and I got a lot done. And he had a Republican legislature for a good part of his term. I had a Democratic Senate my whole 8 years, and a Republican Senate for half my years. Yeah. And nevertheless, they were very productive years for both of us.
What about campaign finance? How much does that affect what's going on?
Campaign finance, it's always been the cancer on the American political system. You didn't have what my friend Simmons called the billionaire class now. Remember, you didn't have people with so much money, flood the system the way they seem to do today. But you had rich people who did money in both parties, and I was always in favor of having a much stronger campaign finance bill than we had. But nationally, I thought it was more important than the state. The idea that you could much money as you want to, one way or another. The politics, of one side or the other.
All right.
Not even.
I think that's enough. So as we can see at the end of this conversation with the interviewer, he's clearly going to say that they're in a lot of trouble. All right. He didn't say how they were in trouble, but he clearly said the democracy is in a lot of trouble as a result of non-transparency. Okay? Non-transparency. So let's deal with this non-transparency. Okay? Very important. And see how that non-transparency affects the public. I didn't say the republic. I said the public affects the people. The reason why the non-transparency affects the public, i.e. the people, is a result of the republic. Okay? Once again, the reason why the democracy and the republic, is actually they're one and the same, all right? The Democratic Republic Party created by the same house, okay? It was created by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, okay? Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. All right, it's very important to understand what's being said to you today. Because if you don't, you'll be lost in the sauce. All right. So we're talking about, as verified by Governor Tom King, that the democracy, as well as in this nation, is in trouble. Okay, it's in trouble. Let's see why it's in trouble. Let's look at the democracy, Democratic Republic. Look at this with some common sense. The Republican Party, retroactively called the Democratic Republican Party, a modern term created by modern historians and political scientists. Did y'all hear that? Look at the language, okay? And also referred to as the Jeffersonian Republican Party, among other names, was an American political party founded by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison in the early 1790s that championed liberalism, republicanism, individual liberties, equal rights, decentralization, free markets, free trade, agrarianism, and sympathy with the French Revolution. The party became increasingly dominant after the 1800 election as the opposing Federalist Party. Okay, this goes back into what we call the ente cordial, or what we call the reason for World War I. It was based upon what we call Anglo-Saxonism, okay? Because these people wanted to be identified as Anglo-Saxons, not from an ethnological standpoint, but from a color standpoint, okay? A color standpoint. Let's look at this. History. Everybody listen, very close. In 1788 and 89 presidential election, the first such election followed the ratification of the United States Constitution. In 1788, George Washington won the votes of every member of the Electoral College. This was prior to the creation of Electoral College, i.e. their cabinet. It was called parliamentary cabinet, okay? His unanimously victory in part reflected the fact that no formal political parties had formed at the national level in the United States prior to 1789. Though the country had been broadly polarized between the Federalists who supported ratification of the Constitution and the anti-Federalists who opposed ratification. Washington selected Thomas Jefferson as Secretary of State and Alexander Hamilton as Secretary of Treasury, and he relied on James Madison as a key advisor and ally in Congress. Greetings, Brother Caldwell from the House of Caldwell. Good to have you here today. Okay, so we see the Democratic Republican Party was created by the Electoral College that was based upon the founding fathers, including George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison, based upon the generalization of that they were Anglo-Saxon because the government which this United States was founded on comes from the English government, okay, based upon the English body of politics. All right, so it's very important that you comprehend what your king is saying to you today, because if you choose to vote or if you don't vote, Democratic or Republic, you're screwed. Okay, I'm not just saying that. New Jersey's Constitution says that, as well as the common law of England says that. Okay, and we know the common law of England was the law governing was the law that was created by the Parliament under the authority of what we call the King. Okay, it was called what? King in Parliament. We must understand the language. It's very important for your comprehension. Okay, so the Democratic Republican Party, which was the two parties created by the Electoral College, all right, were called the body of politics. All right, it was called the body of politics. The body of politics was based upon the political parties. So let's look at the political parties of what we call the United States. All right, very important. Let's look at the political parties of what we call the United States, i.e., America. American electoral politics has been dominated by successive pairs of major political parties since shortly after the founding of the Republic of the United States. Since the 1850s, the two largest political parties have been the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, which together have won every United States presidential election since 1852 and controlled the United States Congress since at least 1856. Despite keeping the same name, the two parties have evolved in terms of ideologies, positions, and support bases over their long lifespan. In response to social, cultural, economic developments, the Democratic Party became the left of the center party since the time of the New Deal, and the Republican Party now being the right of the center party. Okay, so you got a left of the center and a right of the center. All this was created under what we call the New Deal, which came about under the authority of the APA, which governs what we call the administrative law. Okay, we must understand. If you don't understand that, then you need to go back and watch my last post. All right, very important because we're talking about two political parties, the Democratic and Republican Party. And either one that you choose, whether you vote or don't vote, you're screwed. I can't emphasize that enough. You are screwed. All right, let's see. So let's take a look at what we call uh, Just don't want to overlook something. Yeah, I forgot to put something up. Let's do that right now. Politics of New Jersey. Politics. All right, very important. As Governor King was talking about democracy of not just New Jersey, but the democracy of the nation. He said it was in trouble because the non-transparency. Okay, because of the non-transparency. All right, when there's no when there's non-transparency, what that mean to y'all? Somebody hiding something, right? That's what it means to me. Somebody ain't showing everything that they're doing. That's instead of that being public, that's private. Okay, instead of that being public, it's considered being private. You're hiding something. So politics of New Jersey. Let's find it. Look at yes, keeping secrets. Okay, there we go. Politics of New Jersey. Let's go to history. Very important. All right, we can't deal with the nation. All right, until we deal with the state, because we know that the nation is based upon the unification of the states, which originally were called the 13 colonies. The 13 states originally were called the 13 colonies. They changed their name from colony to state unlawfully to hide the transparency. Okay? Very important that we understand that. I'm not just saying that, I'm going to show you. Okay? So we're talking about politics in New Jersey. All right. We know the politics is based upon the two political parties, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And we know that whether you want to deal with it on the federal level or on the state level, we know that at that time there was no United States. It was just in its creation. Okay. We know that the United States didn't come until they created their Constitution. All right. And we know that was in Pennsylvania. All right. So we're dealing with the two political parties by the original founding fathers based off their offshooting of Anglo-Saxon and claiming to be Anglo-Saxon through their ideal of what they call Anglo-Saxonism. All right. Very important you understand what's going on. So let's deal with New Jersey's politics and every other state's body, politics that originated from what we call a Democratic and Republican Party. Okay, and all that actually stemmed from what we call the New Deal, all governed under what they call the APA, Administrative Procedure Act, which calls for transparency. Okay, it calls for transparency. New Jersey politics. The American Revolution. All right. So we're talking about New Jersey politics, but they're going all the way back to the American Revolution. So when you talk about America, you talk about those colonies that made up the term America. Okay. And we know America was called had a prior meaning when it was under the jurisdiction of the crown, under the British crown, or the crown what we call Great Britain. All right. Going back to the unification in 1707. It was called, or under what we call the British Empire. All right, it was called the British. What's it called? Uh, the British American Empire, or the British American Empire, something to that effect. All right, but let's read it for ourselves. In 1776, the first Constitution of New Jersey was drafted. Okay. Written during the American Revolution, it created a basic framework. All right, the basic framework. All right, Brother Caldwell, you asked a question in regards to the Third to England Church of England establishing the government here in these lands. Yes, the Third to England Church of England creates the basic framework for the government to exist, i.e., that body of politics. All right, which has to already be in existence prior to our creating it, because all we did was incorporate into that creation that was created a long time ago, back in the time what we call time immemorial, where the common law originated from under our ancestors, Richard the First, Henry the Third, and John, all sons of Henry the Second, the son of Godfrey the Fifth Caliban Jew, son of Folk, ruler of Jerusalem, where my surname descended down from. Okay, so it's very important you understand to be able to talk that talk, but not talk the talk, which a lot of you do, but not able to walk the walk. Because walking the walk, you only got to fit in that one pair of shoes, and that one pair of shoes is the king. All right, not kings. It's not plural. It's singular. American Revolution in 1776, the first Constitution of New Jersey was drafted. Written during the American Revolution, it created something new because something that already existed prior to this creation. It created a basic framework for the state's government. We talk about those Anglo-Saxonism, and we'll revisit the article that we had yesterday to validate it. I said it created a basic framework for the state's government and allowed all inhabitants of this colony, you notice they didn't say state, of full age who are worthy £50 proclamation money to vote. This called suffrage, including blacks, spinsters, and widows. Married women could not own property under the common law. So how in the hell are they functioning under common law? And we know that the common law was the common law of England as established by New Jersey's Constitution, as Article 32, Article 23, which we'll validate in a second. The Constitution declared that itself is a temporary and void if there was a reconciliation with Great Britain. I repeat. I repeat. No problem, Brother Caldwell. In 1776, the first Constitution of New Jersey was drafted, written through the American Revolution. So at this time, there was war. All right? There was no government set up at this time. The government was in this brewing stage, okay? It was an idealistic government, okay, based off Anglo-Saxonism. All right, it created a basic framework. It wasn't built yet because they just had the framework for the state's government, which was made up as they went along. All right, for the colonies. So if the colonies didn't have a government and they was making up a government, what government allowed the colony to exist? Automatically, that we know that must be the crown, because at that time, what law was existed under the crown? It was the common law. And we know that under the common law of England, according to the Constitution of New Jersey, 1776, it clearly says, and I state verbatim, the Constitution declared itself temporary and void if there was a reconciliation with Great Britain. Both parties in election mocked the other party for relying on petticoat elections and accused each other of allowing unqualified women to vote. You see how they just bypassed Article 23 of the Constitution in regard to the reconciliation? They wasn't concerned about no reconciliation. They wanted the power of the Anglo-Saxonism by calling themselves white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. Okay? We must understand what's going on. So a lot of people said, that's Wikipedia. All right, let's go to the Constitution and validate this fact of law, okay, which also qualified as a fact of evidentiary proof, all right? evidentiary proof of fact as well as fact of law, all right, in regards to questions of law. And we know the questions of law that is a fact of evidence in regards to that Constitution, all right, which is not a Constitution of rights, it's a Constitution of limitations, all right? Our Constitution of limitation. Let's go to the actual website of New Jersey and qualify because it says the crown of Great Britain. We know that Great Britain got their own crowns. We know Scotland had their crown. Ireland had their crown if they had a crown, if they actually had a crown. And we know that the crown of Great Britain was not an actual crown because they did not represent the crown. They only acted as what they call what's the term figureheads. All right, they were figureheads acting under the office of the crown by way of what we call the interregnum. All right, there was no king in place. There was just parliament in place. We must understand this. New Jersey's Constitution. Once again, if you vote Democratic or Republican, you're screwed. All right? You're screwed. You get time, Queen? We're talking about the common law, right? 1776 Constitution of the state of New Jersey. Okay? Right here. No other person, no other group, no other society, no other religious representatives can show you such grounded proof. All right? This is the 1776 Constitution of New Jersey. Let me make sure y'all see this. Article 22. Continuation of the common law. Okay? Continuation of the common law. That the common law of England, as well as so much of the statute law, as have been herefore practiced in this colony, shall still remain in force until they shall be altered by the future law of the legislator. It didn't say the administrative executive branch. It didn't say the administrative government. It said by the legislator. Okay? So that means that the judiciary doesn't have anything to say about what the legislators say, nor the executive department should have anything to say about what the legislators say. Why? Because the legislator creates the law. The executive department executes the law, and the judiciary upholds the law. All right, and we know what law they talking about according to the 1776 Constitution. They ain't talking about the administrative law or administrative courts or administrative judges, because those judges, those courts, or those laws are not the common law of England for the common law people, okay, of England. All right, so it says, and I quote verbatim, that the common law of England, as well as so much of the statute law, we know that the Constitution was interpreted and coded into what they call statutory law. Okay, as have been heretofore practiced in this colony, shall remain in force until they should be altered by the future law of that legislator. Such parts are only accepted as are repugnant to the rights and privileges contained in this charter, and that the estimable right to a trial by jury should remain confirmed as part of the law of this colony without repeal and forever. Who created trial by jury? That was created by the Clarendon Assize Court, and we know that the Assize Court of Clarendon of 1166 was created by the Clarendon Constitution of 1164. And all that was done by the Plantagenet King Henry II, son of Godfrey the Fifth Calabrian Jew, which I'm a descendant of. How did I know that? All this is originated as a result of what we call the anarchy, okay? A breakdown in civil law as you see today. 23, that every person who shall be elected as aforesaid to be member of the Legislative Council or House of Assembly shall previous to his taking his seat in council or assembly. It didn't say administrative officers. It said the council and assembly. That's we call it the House of Lords and the House of Commons. You call it the Senate and the House of Representatives. Taking the following oath of affirmation. I do solemnly declare that as a member of the Legislative Council or Assembly, as the case may be, all right, it didn't say administrative government, it didn't say the APA, all right, it said, or Assembly, as the case may be, of the Colony of New Jersey, I will not assent to any law, vote, or proceeding which shall appear to me injurious to the public welfare of the said colony. You're talking about the public welfare, you're talking about the public domain. You're talking about the public domain, you're talking about uh um the royal domain. The royal domain is what we call crown land. Federal land, public land, all belongs to the public. That's why it's called the public welfare. Nor shall renew or repeal that part of the third section in the charter of this colony, which established that the election of members of the legislative council and assembly should be annual, nor that part of the 22nd section in said charter respecting the trial by jury, nor shall no repeal or alter any part of the 18th or 19th section of the same. And any person or person who shall be elected as aforesaid is hereby empowered to administer to the said members of said oath or affirmation. Do you hear what I'm saying to y'all? Let's clarify it even further. Provided always, all right? Provided always in its true intent and meaning of this Congress, that if a reconciliation between Great Britain and these colonies shall take place, and the latter, i.e., these colonies now called states, to be taken under the protection and government of the Crown. All right, it didn't say Great Britain's crown. It said the crown of Great Britain. This charter should be null and void, otherwise to remain firm and inviolable. Well said, Archbishop. So we said that there was to be a reconciliation between Great Britain. When we say Great Britain, we ain't talking about the House of Stuarts or those monarchs. We're talking about the crown. And we know that the crown is represented by the monarch, but the monarch has to be a de jure monarch contrast to a de facto monarch, because the de jure monarch ruled by right. A de facto monarch ruled by what we call, what's the term? What it's called? Ruled by right. De facto ruled by what we call what the uh I don't want to call it. A de jure, let's just look it up. Sovereign. Just look it up. Factual ability to do so. All right. All right. Let's get there. Let's see. Let me show you. See, it's got to be in your mind, not your brain. It's got to be in your mind. The topic is sovereignty. Okay. Sovereignty can generally be defined as the supreme authority. Sovereignty entails, you hear that word, entail. Crown land is entail land, not fee simple, all right? I.e., fee and simple, all right? Sovereignty entails a hierarchy within a state as well as an external autonomy for the state. This means there's a fusion of government. In any state, sovereignty is assigned to the person, body, or institution that has the ultimate authority over the people and to change existing laws, okay? I.e., amend the laws, renew the laws, repeal the laws. In political theory, sovereignty is a substantive term designating supreme legitimate authority over some polity. I'm talking about body politic, social compact, all right? In international law, sovereignty is an exercise of power by the state. Did you hear that? A state. De jure sovereignty refers to the legal right to do so. De facto sovereignty refers to the factual ability to do so. It's seeming the what we call we got a basic fact and a fact of law. Okay, a basic fact and a fact of law. A basic fact is the fact that assumed to be a fact until proven wrong. Okay, we must understand that. So we see that the facto has the factual ability to do so, and the de jure sovereign has the legal right to do so. Okay, the legal right to do so. Let's go back to where we was originally. Was at the Constitution, right? It's New Jersey's Constitution. Very important. It said the same thing. A reconciliation between Great Britain and these colonies. All right. Shall take place, and the latter be again taken under protection of and government of the Crown of Great Britain. This charter, i.e., your Constitution of New Jersey, shall be null and void, otherwise remain firm and inviolable. So it shall remain firm and inviolable until it come back under protection of the Crown of Great Britain. Now, which monarch ruling under the authority of the Crown? Is it the Scottish monarchs? Is it the Irish monarch, or is it the English monarch? It's the English monarch, because the English monarch was governed by the English common law. We must understand the language. All right? Let's go back to what we call politics of New Jersey. And we understand we're talking about what they said directly in Article 22 and Article 23 of the New Jersey 1776 Constitution. And the same thing they said in Villan versus Harris, a court case ruled in the district court. It clearly says that New Jersey's 1776 Constitution, New Jersey's 1844 Constitution, which the United States Constitution was mimicked after, as well as the 1947 Constitution of New Jersey. Let's just go to it. Did I say it? Let me just go to it. Because we got newcomers here, so I want to make sure that they see it. See, I can just pull it up randomly. That's how you got to be. And we're talking about the king and the executive department. Okay, we know the king governs the legislature because the king, with Parliament as well as do a fusion of government, creates the law, and then the executive department executes the law, and the king's bench upholds the law that the executive department, i.e., Parliament, mandates. All right, by way of the king and his council. Okay, called the King Council. Justia. New Jersey's first constitution, adopted July 2nd, 1776, terminated its status as an English colony, all right, and began its sovereign existence as a state. We know that must be de facto, right? And we know what does de facto sovereignty means? The basic, what it says, the factual ability to do so, contrast to what we call the legal right to do so, okay? So New Jersey first constitution, adopted July 1776, July 2nd, 1776, terminated its status as an English colony and began its sovereign existence as a state. Article 22 of that constitution continued the common law of England in force. That constitution was replaced by the Constitution of 1844, modeled in largely in structure and content of the Constitution of the United States by Article 10, Paragraph 1. And it too continued to enforce the common law, as well as the existing court of law and equity. So also the current Constitution of 1947 by Article 11, Section 1, Paragraph 3, continued the force of the existing laws. Do you see that, Brother Caldwell? So this is our government here in North America, preserved by the judiciary, executed by the executive branch, and created by the legislative branch. Why? Because they inherited the common law of England. All right, you must understand that. And according to what we're reading, based off that common law that was adopted not just in the United States Constitution and not just in the three constitutions of the state of New Jersey, it said it was long ago settled that the former Supreme Court, as established by the Constitution of 1844, which the United States Constitution of the United States Constitution was largely modeled after, was vested with all the power. Y'all better listen, of the King's bench, which the legislator was powerless to cut down or to assign to other courts. So this is the reason you have what we call the Chevron deference or the Chevron doctrine overruling. This is why. All right, that's good to understand. This principle was especially shown in the field of prerogative writs, which a writ of circulator, which is called a if all those who know about what we call a petition for certification, was one of the most frequently prerogative writs sought. Okay? It was the most one sought. So here we have Bellin versus Harris, a district court case validating exactly what we heard based upon the politics of New Jersey. All right, as well as verified by the Jersey Constitution of 1776, which is a continuation of the common law, as well as the return of the transparency of the Crown laws, which were created by Parliament once the New Jersey Constitution became null and void, once there was a reconciliation. Okay, once there was a reconciliation, you better be able to talk this talk, or you're gonna have problems. Let's see. So well, everything that was said here today was actually valid. Oh, I had it already pulled up, way up here. I thought I did. So let me just cut that out. Okay, so we see that Governor King is telling you what's going on. All right, Governor King is telling you that the democracy is in trouble and the Republicanism is in trouble. Why? Because there's no transparency. Why is there no transparency? Because both political parties, whether you want to deal with it from the unification to the federal government or deal with the separation of those colonies or states, are going back to what we call the politics of New Jersey. Why? Because we know New Jersey, before this so-called body politics that we're talking about, which is de facto, New Jersey was governed under what we call the Crown. It was governed under the Crown. So let's go back to the article that we had Sunday, right? Just to verify it. Starting in the middle of the 19th century, Anglo-Saxon shifted from emphasis on liberty to racial ideology. The application of Charles Darwin's theory of natural selection added a pseudoscientific component to Anglo-Saxonism, which had originally been a combination of literary and religious myth. Darwin's theory of natural selection lent an aura of scientific credence to Anglo-Saxonism, as his ideas were appropriated and adapted to classify ethnic groups into a hierarchy, with the Anglo-Saxon people at the top of the human evolutionary chain, because under this paradigm, the world has become a battleground of limited resources, with each of the races competing for survival, with the Anglo-Saxon as the most successful in utilizing those resources. Did you hear that, y'all? Did you hear that? So the United States government, as well as the government that existed before the United States government, which would be the government of what we call Great Britain, are all benefiting off the government that was here prior to Great Britain, the colonies, the 13 colonies, which called the state, as well as the United States. All right. The common law of this land was called the common law of England. The only thing missing from that equation is the English people. Okay. Only thing missing from the equation is the English people. All right. Furthermore, it states that Anglo-Saxons served to promote the manifest destiny, okay, which decreed that the American descendants, you hear that? American descendants, all right, of the Anglo-Saxons were ordained to expand from the Atlantic to the Pacific, and that the Native Americans and Mexicans who stood in their way would either be subjugated or exterminated. But to hear what I'm talking about, you want to call yourself Native American, means native to America. I don't give a damn if you do say you were native to America. I don't care if you call yourself a Native American, whether you were Mexicans, Mississippians, etc. You better make sure it denotes to ethnicity. Because if no, don't, you're in trouble. Because it just said right here that the Anglo-Saxons was at the top of the food chain. They was at the top of the food chain. And this the Anglo-Saxonism was also sanctioned the bondage of African American, both before and after the Civil War. Why would they do such a thing? Why? Because we were those Anglo-Saxons. All right? They were not African American because back in the time of our ancestors, the word African American didn't exist. Okay, we were Anglo-Saxon Berbers, because since you want to talk about African and American, we know that we are here in what we call the Anglo-Sphere. And we know the Anglo-Sphere goes back to the English overseas territory, which goes back to what we call Ashleton, which was the brother of Edward the Elder, which was also the brother of Edmund the First, the father of our Jesus Christ, which is King Edgar the Peaceful, and he was the great-great-grandson of Alfred the Great, which means wise elf. All right? We must understand what I'm telling you, because if you don't, you can't come home. You cannot come home. We can see the Anglo-Saxons, the Anglo-Saxonisms, all right, the ones who want to call themselves Anglo-Saxons, no, they ain't home. They migrated from their homes to become some other identity that they're originally not. Because according to the Naturalization Act of 1790, they chose to give up their ethnicity and be classified as white person. All right? Brother Carbo asks, around what time did the original Anglo-Saxon Berbers arrival and establish the common law on this land? Let's go to a calendar. All right? Because in order to tell your story, you must have a calendar. Right? Mansa Musa didn't have a calendar. Right? Africans don't have a calendar. If they did, we're going to see it right here. We're going to see it right here. Because everybody say you got a common law. It's a common law that you used to. Well, we're talking about specifically the common law of our ancestors, which was the common law of England. And everybody who ain't from England cannot use our common law. Okay? You cannot use our law. Law forbids it. All right? That's why you don't have any transparency in this present day. But that's about to stop. All right? So as we always say in the opening of our platform, the Berber year is 2974, right? Which is according to the Gregorian year, is the year 2024, which the majority of you use that year. Because if you didn't, then that means one of the years on this chart right here, you're going to have to use. Because if you don't, that means you don't exist. Because hell, as I always say, he who writes your books sets your timeline. Time never was when man was not. If the life of time a man begin, the time when man will be no more. So man is associated with men, and men is associated with that group of men, and that group of men is called society, and society is based upon their common law, all right? Based upon the laws that they implemented at the time that it was common to them. And we call that the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta, according to us, was the uncoded law as a result of us coming together before somebody else came in and violated that law. That way we had to, that's why we had to code it. We had to put it in writing. All right? You can tell somebody something and they didn't want to follow it. All right? I didn't know. I didn't know it was no law. If you put it in their face, they can't say they didn't know. Okay? So that's what I'm doing to the people now. I'm putting it in your face so you can't say you didn't know. Okay? So the brother just asked, around what time did the original Anglo-Saxon Berbers, you notice he didn't say Anglo-Saxon English, all right? Because we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, all right? We're calling ourselves Anglo-Saxon Berbers, but not throwing away English because we know English is the story that was created by those who consider themselves English, which came about with the first English king. All right. And that's governed under what we call the English Regnal year. All right. So we take the year 1065 AD, Annos Dominios, the year of our Lord. We see all the calendars that we have in place. You use the Gregorian year, so in the Gregorian year, the year will be 1066, 65. And the Berber year, the year will be what? 2015. All right? You see an English Regnal year here? No. Why? Because it's not applicable. All right? Why? Because who are ruling at this time? Berbers. All right? Berbers are ruling. You got the Buddhists got their calendar. Burmese got their calendar. Byzantine Empire got theirs. Chinese got theirs. Coptic got theirs. Discordian, Ethiopian, Hebrew, Hindu, Igbo, Iranian, Islamic, Japanese. Everybody got a calendar except the black people. Where's the Moorish calendar? Is it up here? No. All right, where's the African calendar? I don't see one. I see Ethiopians, which is a nation of people in Africa, because Africa is the name for the continent. It's not the name for the people. You understand, Brother Caldwell? As we can see, according to this calendar, the Berber calendar is 2015, but there's no English king there. Okay? There's no English king there, but there's a Berber calendar and there's English people existing. That's why we call ourselves Anglo-Saxon Berbers, because the surname Berber originated where? Everybody should know where the word Berber originated from. London, right? And London is a name given to a place that's found in two places, Berkshire and Firth. We know Firth it comes from Scotland, and Berkshire is a territory in England where Alfred the Great and his ancestors grew up at. All right? I can't go through that as a result of the time span of this lesson, but according to the calendar, all right, which proves that we did exist at this time in 1065. And at that time, 1065, there is no English Regnal year. So that if somebody's ruling at that time and they're calling themselves Anglo-Saxon Berbers, it will be Berbers classified as Anglo-Saxons. All right? Because everybody want to be called Anglo-Saxon based off the term Anglo-Saxonism. All right? Y'all must understand. So let's go to 1066. Since we know in 1065, the only calendar that exists in is Berber. So we can validate our story. Can the English validate theirs prior to 1066? No. Why? Because we know in 1066, William the Conqueror came in and invaded England. The term America came from I'll get to that in a second. When did we get on the land? We didn't. Let's just pull this up right here. I'm gonna just entertain that question for you. Very simple. Anglo-Spear. Anglo-Spear. It didn't say Anglophone. It said Anglo-Spear. And when you see Anglo-Spear, it's lighted up by the colorization. All right? You see the United States, North America, Canada, and what they call Great Britain, Ireland, and Scotland. At this time, those names did not exist. All right? North America did not exist. North America was encompassed by what we call Spanish and French before Great Britain even got here. You got to go back to the treaties of Paris of 1763, when French and Spain seceded all the territory to Great Britain. All right, I spoke about that in prior classes. So if you want to get that understanding now, you need to go back and watch those prior lessons. If you can look at the title, and it'll show you when I spoke about the Anglo-Sphere. But just in general, the Anglo-Sphere is the territory lit up, as you can see here on the screen. All right, and let's go to the Anglo-Sphere. Anglo-Sphere is the Anglo-American sphere of influence. All right, so you're talking about the diaspora. All right, when you say influence, you're talking about the diaspora. All right, they didn't say not part itself. The Enlightenment, not the diaspora. We know diaspora is where you migrate. The Anglo-Sphere in the Anglo-American sphere of influence is based upon the English Enlightenment. Okay, and if there was the English Enlightenment, you must go back to the Middle Ages. All right, you must go to the Middle Ages, and we're talking about the Anglo-Sphere, and the Anglo-Sphere is a sphere of influence with a core group of nations that today maintain close political, diplomatic, and military cooperation. While the nations included in different source varies, the Anglo-Sphere is usually not considered to include all countries where English is the official language. So it is not synonymous with the spirit of Anglophone. You hear it? Though commonly included nations are those that were formerly part of the British Empire and retained the English language and the English common law. So before you had the British Empire, it was called the English Empire because British invaded the English Empire when you go back to the what we call the Scottish independence in 1295. When Scotland was independent, got their independence was by who? Edward I as a Plantagenet crown. These are facts you cannot ignore. So you are in the Anglo-Sphere, and when you're in the Anglo-Sphere, that means that you're governed by what they call English overseas possession. Let's pull that up so you can see. And this is the only thing I'm gonna refer to so I can go back to my lesson. I'm shortcutting right now because I can't give you a full lesson, Brother Caldwell. Listen very close. English overseas possessions comprised a variety of overseas territories that were colonized, conquered, or otherwise acquired by the Kingdom of England before 1707. 1707, you had Great Britain unification. All right, so they talk about English overseas possession before 1707, and looks what what's lit up. It's right there. This before Great Britain even became a unification. All right. So if Great Britain came about in what we call 1707 by way of what we call Union of the Crowns in 1603, then we know that originated as a result of what we call Henry VIII, what we call claim of supremacy by the Supremacy Act, if I'm not mistaken, of 1534, somewhere around that time. All right. So we see that the English overseas possessions, which were now overtaken by way of what we call prescription of sovereignty by what we call Great Britain. Okay, through prescription of sovereignty. Prescription of sovereignty when somebody take land claiming to be the de jure monarch, knowing damn well that it is a de facto monarch, which I'm going to show you in a second. So we see the English overseas possessions within the Anglo-Sphere. All right, within the Anglo-Sphere starts here. Let's see. In North America, Newfoundland and Virginia were the first centers of English colonization. During the 17th century, Maine, Plymouth, New Hampshire, Salem, Massachusetts Bay, Nova Scotia, Connecticut, New Haven, Maryland, Rhode Island province were settled. In 1664, New Netherland and New Sweden were taken from the Dutch, becoming New York, New Jersey as part of Delaware and Pennsylvania. The origin of that goes back to here. The Kingdom of England is generally dated from the rule of Ashton from 927. Once again, we're talking about English overseas possessions, which are in the Anglosphere, which goes back to the time of the English people, known as Anglo-Saxon Berbers, because you did not have an English regnal year till William the Conqueror, and William the Conqueror invaded England. And when he invaded England, it wasn't called England at that time. It was called Albion, which the Scots called Alba. Okay? We must understand. You got to know what you're talking about. So it says the Kingdom of England is generally dated from the rule of Atherton from 927. He was the great grandson of Atherton, which means, Alfred the Great, which means wise elf. Atherton means noble stone. During the rule of the House of Nidlinga, that's the Danish king, Harold Godwinson, where my queen descended down from, by way of her surname, Godwinson. He ruled from 1013 to 1014 and then 1016 to 1042. England was part of a personal union which included domains of Scandinavia. In 1066, William the Conqueror, the first English regnal year, because prior to 1066, there was no English regnal year. There was only a Berber calendar that I showed you a second ago. William the Conqueror, Duke of Normandy, conquered England. So he conquered England, making the Duchess of Crown Land of the English throne. So Crown Land is Intel land. Intel land is personified by the monarch, which cannot be separated. All right? Let's qualify it. Let's see. Crown Land. I guess I go here for you, brother Caldwell. The crown. Because your question where did we get on the land? We was always on the land. The land belonged to us. It's intel. All right? It's an estate that belongs to you as an heir. There was no Holy Roman Empire. That's a false story. You're not Roman, so you can care less about what Romans say. You should care about what your ancestors said. Because like I said, if Rome write your story, 9 times out of 10, they gonna put themselves first, like anybody else who tells the story. What did the Britain and the colonies do? They called themselves Anglo-Saxons, didn't they? They took your story from you because you didn't know your own story. All right. So that which was intel, which was based upon an inheritance passed down from the minor, was now ceded to the state through what we call prescription of sovereignty, because they claimed you to be interstate. You weren't around no more. When they got here, the land was empty. It was just vacant. We know that's a damn lie, because we know that the Spanish and French was warring with the Plantagenet crown through what we call the 100-Year War, the War of the Roses. All right, I know this history like it's like the back of my hand. All right, Crown Land. Let's read what Crown Land is. So he had another question. Okay, so the Anglo-Saxon Berbers have been here since during the time of the Holy Roman Empire. Yes, the Holy Roman Empire was on the other side of the wall. You had two types of London. London is just a city. You had Londinium and you had Londonwick. Okay? If you go back to the story of London Wall, you'll see that one side of the wall was where the Roman Empire set up shop. It was called an itinerant court, which means a moving government. On the other side of the wall, you have what they call Londonwick. And Londonwick goes back to Alfred the Great, who rebuilt that wall. Okay? He rebuilt that wall. That wall is what Thomas Jefferson called separation of church and state. Okay? Because we know that Rome represents the church, and we understand that England represents a body of politics, which was called a church state. All right? When Rome came in, they took your body of politics and put it in the air. When we were here, we didn't have there was no spook god because we were those gods. They called us lords, and the lords were at the top of the food chain. Why? Because they were called the House of Lords. Yeah, the right word to say, Brother Caldwell, is wow. You're exactly right. You ain't seen nothing yet. Let's break it down. Crown Land, this fly is added again. That same fly is added. I thought I killed you. I'm battling flies. Okay. Crown land, sometimes spelled crown land, also known as royal domain, is a territory area belonging to the monarch. You hear that? Belonging to the monarch. No one else who personifies the crown. In the biblical story, you call it incarnate. Okay? Incarnation. We call it incorporation, and another term for incorporation is personified. All right. It is the equivalent of a intel state and passes with the monarchy being inseparable from it. Today, in Commonwealth realm, crown land is considered public land and is apart from the monarch's private estate. All right. So crown land is personified by the monarch who represents the crown. All right. And he's the one who protects the intel estate for the heirs who are descendants of the monarch by way of what we call your pedigree, your status. All right. Your ancestry is very, very important. All right. So crown land. Crown land is a royal domain. It's a territory area belonging to the monarch who personifies the crown. It is equivalent to an intel estate. So what is an intel estate? You call it estates or lands. All right. Or feudal tenure or a lot and blot number. That's the most common term, a lot and blot number. When you go outside and you step in the next neighbor's front yard, you out of your territory. So you don't own anything. English common law. You hear that? And they say nobody else but English common law. And English common law, fetal or intel or telealized in Scottish law, is a form of trust established by a deed or settlement that restricts the sale or inheritance of any estate in real property and prevents that property from being sold, divided by a will, or otherwise alienated by the tenant in possession, and instead causes it to pass automatically by what, y'all? Operation of law. You hear that? So what law do you need to convey, transfer, or what they call uh, reversion, right? A reversion to revert back to what they call the original owner. The original owner, based upon an estate and land, which you call fetal or fetal tenure or lot and block number, was yours based off the tenure. All right, we know the tenure was the conveying of the land from the original owner to the grantee, and you are the grantee if you are an heir. If you're not an heir, guess what, buddy? You're not a grantee. All right? Why? Because the law says you can't take nothing that belongs to you by operation of law. Let's see this operation of law. Everybody want to see the operation of law? Brother Caldwell, you want to see this operation of law, brother? Let's see. Listen. Let's do it. Brother Caldwell said, let's do it. Matter of fact, let's look at Brother Caldwell's surname. Since let's see if he want to come home. Called. Check it out. Brother Caldwell. Your name is Scottish. All right? Your name comes from Scotland. We know Scotland submitted themselves to Edward I based upon their their independence from England, do what we call the Scottish independence. So you are a descendant, all right? Just like Dred Scott was a descendant, all right? You got some Scottish surname in you as a result of that name, all right? And the Scotland who used the name declared you to be their slave, okay? They declared you to be their slave by way of those people migrating to England and known as Scots and marrying into the family. We know that when you get into King Edward the Peaceful and his council was made of Scotland, of Scottish people. All right, Vikings. Let's see. All right, Scottish history reveals Caldwell was the first used as a surname by the Strathclyde Britain people. It was a name for someone who lived in Renfrewshire. This place name may also derive from Old English word Cell, which means cold, and well, which means well, and indicate that the original bearer lived near a well that gave cold water. The surname Caldwell was first found in Renfrewshire. So when you get some time, brother Caldwell, look the name up. Ain't nothing wrong with the name. It's just understanding the story behind the name and correcting the story behind the name, whether the story was good or bad. It's your obligation to correct the story because, as you can see, those Scottish kings were sitting and acting on behalf of the English crown. Okay? So there's nothing wrong with the surname originating from Scotland. You are an heir. Okay? You are an heir as a result of you are melanated. Okay? You are one family, one fold, all right, under one law. Let's get it. What was I looking at? Feet tab. All right, here we go. Let's get it. Parliament and the crown. First, let's do this first. Let me just show you this. Pay close attention, Brother Caldwell. No problem, brother. This is what we do. We just want you to come home, brother. We ain't charging you. We just want you to be cognizant of these facts. New Jersey Provincial Council was the upper house, which means that these were our lords, our ancestors, not the lower house, the House of Commons, but the House of Lords, the upper house of New Jersey's legislature under colonial rule until it was replaced by the New Jersey Legislative Council under the New Jersey Constitution of 1776. And what did that Constitution say on July 2nd, 1776? It was supposed to really conciliate with the crown. What crown? The crown of England, not the crown of Great Britain, because the crown of Great Britain was the one who enslaved you, and Great Britain came around in 1707 by those Scottish monarchs, okay? By those Scottish monarchs, and those Scottish monarchs were no more than what they call Northmen, Vikings, Normans, okay? Very important. History, let's look. We ain't even got to go through that, just look right here. Length of term, indefinite. The authority, the crown. So that means that the power and authority of the crown is indefinite. It might not be active, but the crown still exists. The only way it's inactive is if there is no monarch. Okay? And if there is no monarch, that means that those who acting on them as a monarch are doing it for ceremonial purposes. All right? That's called a figurehead. All right. We just read that the Constitution of New Jersey said in Article 23 that if a reconciliation of Great Britain, which is now called United Kingdom, and the latter, the colonies come under the protection of the Crown of Great Britain, that the Constitution of New Jersey is no more. And that's going back to the original founding fathers. That includes all the states, the 13 states as well as the 50 states, because as a result of the contract had with the 13 states, all the other states are irrelevant. Okay, so we're talking about prior to 1776. It said the Provincial Council was established in 1702 upon the surrender by the proprietors of East Jersey and those of West Jersey of the right of government to Queen Anne. Anne's government united the two colonies as a province of New Jersey as a royal colony, establishing a new system of government. All right, you got to understand. Check it out. The instructions from Queen Anne to Viscount Cornbury, the first royal governor. Now, Governor King just said they in trouble with this democracy. All right, in New Jersey. Governor Murphy's now, and we heard Governor Murphy in my last lecture. He said they were upset with the decision of the Chevron deference doctrine. They was upset about it because it was going to stop them from doing business as they've been doing it thus far. All right, under administrative law, through administrative courts, through administrative legislation. All right, all is a violation of law because according to the monarch or the queen as a monarch, Queen Anne, who was the de facto queen, and we know the de facto queen has the basic right to do so, not a legal right to do so. And they incorporated the first world governor of New Jersey and outlined not a separation of church, separation of government, separation of powers, but a fusion of power. Once again, not a separation of power, but a fusion of power system, which allowed for an overlap of the executive, legislative, and judicial authority, and provided for a bicameral legislative consisting of the council and the general assembly. So there was no separation of power. There was a fusion of power when the crown was in control, okay, under the monarch, who personifies the crown, which controls crown land, which is intel land, and intel land belongs to heirs and is transferred or conveyed by what? Operation of law. So there must be some statute that's in place for the conveyance of the land back to the original owner. Let me show you. So we know that Queen Anne was a Scottish monarch, and we know she opened the door for the monarchs of the United Kingdom, which is called the House of Windsor. The House of Windsor passed it on to what we call the House of what was it called? The House of Windsor. I forgot the house. House of Windsor. I forgot the house. I'm not going to waste too much thought on it anyhow. So we know that the fusion of power that was established by Viscount Cornbury under the instructions of Queen Anne was a fusion of power, as we see in New Jersey Provincial Council. All right? In New Jersey Provincial Council, which was indefinite under what we call the Crown, which was in alternative places, Burlington or Perth Amboy. Why? Because it was called an itinerant court. It was a moving government. It didn't sit in one place. It was not stationary. It was called an itinerant court. Saxonburg, well said, Archbishop. It's a German house. Saxon and Coburg. Where's it born? Saxon and Coburg. Thank you, Archbishop Belmont. All right. So we see that it was a fusion of government under the crown. And we understand that fusion of government was supposed to return based upon what they said in the Jersey Constitution in Article 23. Once there was a reconciliation with the colonies in Great Britain. And the only way that reconciliation could be done is by way of personifying, which is what we use or deem by what we call incorporation or incarnating. So when you say incarnate as the Jesus Christ, we say incorporate as the king or personify as the king to protect the land. Not that spook land they talk about in the sky, but the land here on earth. Why? Because the only way it can be conveyed was by way of what we call a deed. There's two ways to convey land based off the ancient archaic form, by lottery of deed and lottery of law. This was called lottery of season, which means delivery of possession. I ain't got time to go through that today. I talked about it in prior lessons. If you want to know, please go back and view those lessons. Let's move forward. So Queen Anne was from the House of Stuart, all right, of the House of Windsor, which gave birth to Saxon and Coburg, which Charles I Charles II, all descended down from. And we know that the ruling monarch right now on the United Kingdom is who? Charles II. Let's go to the United Kingdom monarch to prove my point. Over there, not here. It said the crown is in here in New Jersey, not over there in the United Kingdom. Okay? Very important. So it's up to me to prove where the crown is and where crown land is. It's my job to prove who is the monarch, who controls crown land, and where that crown land is. We incorporate it or personify it where? In Perth Amboy. Our chart is right there on the wall. Okay? It's right there on the wall. They moved it from Perth Amboy to where is that now? Trenton. Okay? Trenton. Let's get there. Interesting ain't the word. Let's prove it. Let's just prove that the crown is in New Jersey and not in the United Kingdom. Head of the Commonwealth. Because the crown land was royal domain, or let's just look at it first before we get there. Let's just go back to it. Listen, brother Caldwell. I always say, it's better for you to not know this than to know this and not follow it, because you're going to be held responsible. Those who are 18 and up, it's pretty much over for you. I'm only concerned about the children. Okay? So if you call yourself cognate and conscious, all right, and you of age and you don't know this, guess what? You can't tell me you didn't know this. That's not gonna fit the script. Because what profit a man to gain the whole world but lose the soul? What will you give in exchange for your soul? You already gave what you want based upon your perception. Your perception is based on what you perceive through your five faculties. Based upon what you want is perceived through your five faculties: taste, touch, smell, sight, and hearing. Once you do those, you go running. All right, not thinking about the decision until you've done what you've done. All right, so it's very important that you make your decision now, because it's determined if you have a place here on crown land. What is crown land? Crown land, also spelled royal domain or Domesday, which is what the Doomsday Book is all about. That was created by William the Conqueror and recordation of all the land records that was established by recorders of deeds. Okay? Crown land is a territory area belonging to the monarch who personifies the crown. So the monarch personifies the crown, and the crown is indefinite. That means it never dies. People change, positions don't. So if nobody sitting in that position as the monarch, then that means that the office is just vacant. All right? So how has the office of the crown been vacant from 1702 to this present damn day? How? People are stupid. That's why. It took me to come back to recognize that and tell the people, and the people are still stupid. Why? Because they ain't themselves. If you got an English and you damn sure ain't yourself, let's prove it. It is the equivalent of an entail estate and passes with the monarchy, being acceptable from it. That's like God. The devil can't take God's creation. That ain't happening. God is not going to let you take his creation. Today in Commonwealth realms, crown land is considered public land. Hear that word, Commonwealth realms? You call that a republic. A commonwealth is called a public. Once again, a commonwealth is called a republic, an interregnum, because there is no monarch ruling. The only person you have ruling right now its ceremonial figures or figureheads known as your president or your monarch in the United Kingdom, which only ruling by way of what we call what it said, it's not a legal right to do so, but a basic, what is it, a basic, um, what was it said, what is it, a basic right to do so, not a legal right to do so. All right. So crown land is intel estate, which is personified by the crown. Very important. And all Commonwealth rims are subject to that crown through what we call overseas territories, through what we call a radical title. All right. A radical title. What is the radical title? Anybody ever heard of that term? How is this stuff just popping up in my head? Radical title. I got case law to back this up. Radical title. Radical title is a concept, once again, in English common law, that refers to the crown's underlying title to all land held in overseas plantations and colonies. It grants the crown the power to alienate others from land and to transfer beneficial ownership of the land to itself or others, but by itself does not grant beneficial ownership. Did y'all hear that? Did you hear that, Brother Caldwell? Just because you're here don't mean you belong here. All right? If you're an alien, that means that you immigrated here or migrated here by the process of what the United States call naturalization. Okay? You can't be protected by the crown's radical title, which oversees all title to land. If it's an underlying title to land, that means that there are no feudal tenure estates because the land is allodial. All right? New Jersey Revised Statute 46:3-6. The land is allodial in New Jersey, as well as in all the states, because when New Jersey starts, everybody follows. Okay? Let's get there. So the radical title of the crown is all overseas plantations and colonies. All right? And those overseas plantations or colonies is all part are called Commonwealth. All right? Public domain. Commonwealth or public domain or what they call public land. Very, very, very important for you to understand that. Why? Because if the crown is in New Jersey, because Brother Carbo just said, so the crown is in New Jersey and not in the United Kingdom. Interesting. Let's show it. Let me show you why it's interesting. Because we just said that crown land is personified by the king or the monarch, and the crown land, which is intel, is inseparable. You can't separate it. It falls on what they call statutes of mortmain, which means a dead pledge. The United States know that. The colonies know that. That's why they pledged everything, because they know it don't belong to them. All right? So let's go to what we call, since all land is crown land, and all crown land is personified by the crown, and all land under the royal radical title is based upon the Commonwealth rims, which is plantations and colonies. So that means that whoever ruling the Commonwealth rims, which is plantation and colonies, it must be the crown. It must be the monarch, and the de jure monarch, not the de facto monarch. Very important, because we just read the definition of sovereignty. One with the legal right to do so, and one with the basic right to do so. A basic fact is not a fact, can be a fact until proven wrong. All right? And the laws of evidence. Rule 301 and Rule 302 and the rules of evidence. That's on the state level and the federal level. Look it up. Let's see. Head of the Commonwealth. Oh, I wanted to come here first. Let's go to the United Kingdom's website. Where's it at? Right here. Parliament and the Crown. Very simple terms. Along with the House of Commons, then it said New Jersey's was ruled by the House of Lords, and then you had the lower house, which is the House of Commons. Along with the House of Commons and the House of Lords, the Crown is an integral part of an institution of Parliament. You hear that? The King plays a constitutional role in opening and dissolving Parliament and approving bills before they become law. So that means that the King and the legislative department work together. Just as established in the fusion of government established by Queen Anne in 1702. All right? Parliament, the highest legislative authority in the United Kingdom, made up of the House of Commons, House of Lords, and the King, who is the UK's current hereditary monarch. Okay? So you call it the Senate and the House of Representatives, the House of Lords, or the House of Commons, all right? Or what they call, the House of Lords, the House of Commons, or the Senate, or the House of Representatives, whichever form of government you're looking at. If you're looking at it from the electoral college, there would be the Senate and the General Assembly. If you're looking at it through what we call Parliament or the Cabinet of Parliament, it would be based off the House of Lords and the House of Commons. And we know the House of Lords goes back to what we call the Magna Carta of 1215. So the highest legislative authority, didn't say executive, and didn't say judiciary, is that the highest legislative authority in the United Kingdom, made up of the House of Commons and House of Lords, and the King, who is the UK current hereditary monarch. Notice they say hereditary. That is a lie. That's what they want you to believe if you don't do the investigation. Parliament, the Crown. Listen, y'all. Crown. This is another way of referring to the monarchy, as we just read in Crown Land. Crown Land is personified by the monarch, which is inseparable, which cannot be separated from it. Okay, so it says the Crown. This is another way of referring to the monarchy, which is the oldest part of the system of government in this country. Time has reduced the power of the monarchy. You hear that? Time has reduced the power of the monarchy, and today it is broadly ceremonial. The current UK monarch is King Charles III. Once again, I repeat, this is another way of referring to the monarch. And we know Crown Land is personified by the monarch through incarnation, personification, or incorporation, which is the oldest part of the system of government in this country, not UK, but North America. All right, because we know in North America there's a de jure office, and UK there's a de facto office. Why? Because we see New Jersey not just in the Constitution of New Jersey, Article 23, but we also see it uh, uh, in New Jersey legislation, Title 46, Title 46 colon 3 dash, what is it? 46 colon 3 dash 2. All right, if you get time, look it up. You'll see it for yourself. I ain't got time to go through it today as a result of the time span I got to do this lesson coming into my closing. So once again, I repeat, the Crown is another way of referring to the monarch, okay? Which is the oldest part of the system of government in this country. But because of time, it has reduced the power, i.e. the royal prerogative of the monarchy. Why has it reduced the royal regalia of the power of the monarch? Why has it? Why? Because it's only done for ceremonial purposes now. Let's prove it. That means it's de facto. It's just a figurehead. They don't really have no power at all. Let's prove it. Head of the Commonwealth. So if he's head of the Commonwealth, that means he's head of the Commonwealth realms. And the Commonwealth realms belong to the crown, right? Because the crown personifies intel land, which is called intel land. You understand, Brother Caldwell? My members understand this. This is what we do. But you are new, so we want to make sure that you're on the same level. The head of the Commonwealth is the ceremonial leader who only symbolizes the free association of independent member nations of the Commonwealth of Nations and intergovernmental organizations that currently comprise of 56 sovereign states. Okay? 56 sovereign states. These are all overseas territories. All right? Part of the King's Jewel Regalia or radical title because it's called Crown Land. There is no set term of office or term limit, and the role itself has no constitutional relevance to any of the member states within the Commonwealth. Did you hear that? There is no set term of office or term limit, and the role itself has no constitutional relevance to any of the member states within the Commonwealth. Let's see why. Figurehead. In politics, a figurehead is a practice of who the juror in the name or by law appears to hold an important and often supremely powerful title or office, yet de facto in reality exercise little or no actual power at all. This usually means that they are head of state, but not head of government. Did y'all hear that? Did you hear that, Brother Caldwell? Let's see. Let's see an example. Let's see an example of somebody acting what it says exercise little or no power. In politics, a figurehead is a practice of who the juror in name or by law appears to hold an important and often supremely powerful title or office, yet de facto, in reality, and exercise little to no actual power. This usually means that there are head of state, but not head of a government. The metaphor derived from the card figurehead at the pro of a sailing ship. Okay? Examples. Head of state in most constitutional monarchies and parliamentary republics are often considered to be figureheads. Commonly cited one includes the monarch of the United Kingdom, who is also head of state or other Commonwealth members and head of the Commonwealth, but has no power over the nation in which the sovereign is not head of government, but does not exercise power in the realms in their own initiative. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? They don't have any power. They don't have any authority. They're only a head of state, such as your president. All right? They only got their power by what we call prescription of sovereignty. Let's look it up in closing. Prescription in international law is sovereignty transfer of a territory by the open encroachment by the new sovereign upon the territory for a prolonged period of time, acting as the sovereign without protest or other contest by the original sovereign. It is analogous to the common law doctrine of easement by prescription for private real estate. Did you hear that? This can't get no better. It couldn't get any better. All right? You must understand. Why? Because New Jersey represents the crown. Only thing missing is the king. All right? The only thing missing is the king. So in closing, since Brother Caldwell, you know that we are Anglo-Saxon Berbers, pursuant to the 1911 Encyclopedia, which we are reading now in closing. Here in what you now call North America, but this is not North America. This is England. All right. It says here. The Arabs had built his social structure on the Quran, which inculcates absolutism, aristocracy, theocracy. The Berber, despite his nominal Mohammedanism, i.e., his ways, is a democratic, with his Jimna or Witteman and his Kanun or unwritten code, the Magna Carta of the individual liberties as opposed to the community of good. So that means that Witteman and the uncoded Magna Carta is the government functions of Berbers. You hear that? Of Berbers. So if that's the case, what the hell is Witten, man? In closing, he said, brother, brother, brother Carl said he's gonna put this is not North America, this is England. Put that on the shirt ASAP. Let's prove it even further. Witten, wise men. So if you comprehend what your king is saying to you today, that means you are counted amongst the wise men. All right? You have returned to your rightful government. All right? The Witten wise men was the king's council and the Anglo-Saxon government of England from before the 7th century until 11th century. It comprised important noblemen, including aldermen, thanes, and bishops. Meaning of the Witten was sometimes called the Wittenman. Didn't that's what they just said in the 1911 encyclopedia? They just said the same thing. But they didn't say English, they said Berbers. It didn't say England, it said Berbers, Wittenman, right there. There you go. Magna Carta, right there. All right? That means they not only had a government, they had an ethnicity because they only have a government. It must be based off people made up just like you to enforce the same common law. Yes, it's older than Dakota Hembright, and because all right, let's go back to the calendar. Let's go back to the calendar. If you just ask the question, brother Newby, Kevin Newby asks, is the Wittemont legal system older than the Code of Hammurabi? First of all, you got to find who is the Code of Hammurabi. That means that you're talking about the Persians. All right, you're talking about the Persians. Do you see a Persian calendar up here? I see an Iranian. Where is their calendar to support the existence of any Persians? All right? There is no calendar. There is no English reading out yet, but there is a Berber calendar, just like the 1911 encyclopedia said. There were Berbers there. The English reading out here didn't come until 1066, where William the Conqueror invaded our land. When they invaded these lands, we're talking about here in North America, not over there in UK. That's where they immigrated from to come over here and steal our shit. Excuse my French. Ancient Sumerians were the ones who created the confusion, and Sumerians can't even support their existence because I don't see no calendar up here. Where's the Sumerian calendar? I always say, he who writes your books sets your timeline. We ain't over there in Asia. We ain't over in Europe. We ain't over in Africa. We right over here in North America. And North America was called the Anglosphere, going back to time immemorial, time at a mind, time when memory runs out. Okay? Very important. And in closing, power behind the throne, in lieu of figurehead, or what we call heads of the Commonwealth. A power behind the throne. Let's read that in closing. The phrase power behind the throne refers to a person or a group that is understood to de facto will the power of high-ranking officials originally, and hence the name a monarch. Did you hear that? Or whose support must be maintained to continue the office. In politics, in politics, is most commonly referred to a nominal subordinate or advisor to an office holder, often called a figurehead, who serves as de facto leader, setting policy through influence, manipulation, or both. So this is why you had the Chevron deference over ruling, because those de facto rulers called executive heads, known as your presidents or Commonwealth figureheads, are not just true and de jure crown or minor. Why? Because in order for that, you must be an Anglo-Saxon Berber. Okay? So you must be an Anglo-Saxon Berber, because the Anglo-Saxon Berbers was the creator of the Wittenmont government. Okay? Witten government. I think I have one more thing to show you before I close out. All right. Now, this is how the land returned to the heirs who are part of the intel estate by way of the crown, i.e., the monarch retrieving the land by way of operation of law, by way of incorporation as a corporation soul. All right? A corporation soul. Listen, Brother Caldwell, the crown. The crown broadly represents the state in all aspects within the jurisprudence of the Commonwealth realms and their subdivisions, such as crown dependencies, overseas territories, provinces, or states. The term can be used to refer to the office of the monarch or the monarchy as institution, to the rule of law, or to the function of the executive, the crown and council, legislative, the crown and parliament, and judicial, the crown and bench, governing and civil services. Listen to this one, brother. The concept of the crown as a corporation soul developed first in the Kingdom of England as the separation of the physical crown and property of the kingdom from the person and personal property of the monarch. So in my personal capacity, I'm just a natural man, die like every other man. But in the capacity of the monarch or the crown, I'm superior. I'm supreme. I'm indefinite. All right, eternal. All right. So it says the concept of the crown, which most don't understand, is a corporation soul. Before we close out on the corporation soul, what is the concept of the crown as a corporation soul, and the purpose and intent of the crown as a corporation soul? Concept. Listen, Brother Caldwell. Yes, the council of wise men, which means wise men. The concept of the crown took form under feudal system, i.e., William the Conqueror. Though not used this way in all countries that had the system, in England, all rights and privileges were ultimately bestowed by the ruler. Land, for instance, was granted by the crown to lords in exchange for feudal services, and they, in turn, granted the land to lesser lords, those old proprietors that were given land by Queen Anne, which was surrendered back to the crown in 1702, all right, which is now indefinite. One exception to this was called free and common soakers. Owners of land held as soakers held is subject only to the crown, not the landlord, not the tenant in chief, but the crown, which was personified by the monarch. When such land become ownerless, they are said to extinct, i.e., return to direct ownership of the crown. called crown land binding vacated, which means abandoned property, and the royal prerogative by which unknown property, primarily unclaimed inheritance, becomes the property of the crown. So if the property comes to the crown by way of an escheatment because of interstate, meaning that if there ain't no heirs, then somebody got to take the property and hold it till an heir come into what they call primogeniture. Someone's able to claim the state on behalf of all other persons of the as heirs, and that's called primogeniture, firstborn. Okay, and that firstborn through lottery of season operates under postmortem by way of what we call corporation soul, and that's what we're closed on. Corporation soul. Anybody want to understand what the corporation soul? See Chisholm versus Georgia, United States Supreme Court. They tell you exactly what I'm telling you now. A corporation soul is a legal entity consisting of a single soul incorporated office by a single soul natural person. This structure allows corporation, often religious corporation or commonwealth government. It didn't say a civic organization. It didn't say a private organization. It didn't say a church. It said a religious corporation and not some just based upon religious practice or religious faith. We're talking about a religious government, a body of politics to pass without interruption from one office holder to the next, given position legal continuity with subsequent office holder having identical powers and possession to their predecessors. A corporation soul is one of two types of corporation, one being aggregate and the other being corporation soul. And in closing, let me show you this, since your question was, there's a government here on this land, and we know that in order for there to be a government on this land based off the English ancestor, there must be a king. All right. And the king is a corporation soul. So let me show you, Brother Caldwell. Now, you go to any other person or any other group or any other society and tell them to pull this rabbit out of a hat, and they won't be able to do it. In closing, all right. Tell somebody to show you something like this, Brother Caldwell. Middlesex County Recorder's Office. Book and page number. Recording fee. Type of document. Religious society. A corporation sold pursuant to New Jersey Revised Statute 161-28, which says, right state under the charters of Great Britain, saved from repeal. An act to incorporate trustees of religious society for property held in corporation in place thereof. Okay? So here is our certificate of incorporation, or our certificate of personification, or our certificate of incarnation. You hear that? They can take whatever term they choose, but this is a valid, legal, sound document which refers to us as a body of politics. 46 call it what? 16 16:1-43.9. Let's just go there in closing. (16:1-43.9). 16:1-43.9. Powers of consolidated corporations. The consolidated corporation shall have and may exercise all powers conferred by the respective certificate of incorporation or charter of constituent corporation. So a certificate of incorporation or a charter is the same thing according to 16:1-43.9. And it clearly says that by Title 16 Corporation Association Religions, in particular, the powers conferred by Article 5 of Chapter 1 of Title 16 of the revised statute, so far as the same are not inconsistent with this act, are necessary or convenient to the furtherance of its object, and are in accordance with the doctrine, government. Did you hear that? Doctrine and government, discipline, and usage of the church or religious denomination to the jurisdiction of which the constituent corporation were subject. So if New Jersey was the crown, then I incorporated or charter based upon the prior existence of that incorporation, which was the crown, because the only one can incorporate a corporation is the king himself. Okay? And I am the king. Let's see. What is our obligation here at this temple? Business purpose. A means for orderly transfer of ecclesiastical property. That means that the church took our property. What church? The Roman Catholic Church. What church? The Church of England. The same church that Thomas Jefferson broke away when they separated church and state because he didn't want us getting our property back. But guess what? That time is over. So we see here in Article 3, the business purpose of our religious society, i.e. our corporation, so is to return crown land through our radical title, which is held by the king as a means for orderly transfer of the ecclesiastical property, serving to keep the title within the denomination or religious society, in order to keep the religious property from being treated as the estate of the vicar of the church. The property was titled to the office of the corporation sold. A corporation sold, the crown is the legal embodiment of the executive, legislative, and judicial government in the monarchy of each commonwealth, just like Queen Anne left it back in 1702. Okay? In 1702. So these facts are indisputable. These facts are indisputable. Okay? So with that, this lesson is for Brother Millicent, as well as for Brother Caldwell, as well as for all you who have a decision to make at this point in time. You either choose a Republican leader, or a Democratic leader, and whether you choose either one, you're screwed. You're screwed. The only remedy you got, the only savior you got in regards to heaven on earth is me, your king. And heaven is on this way. All right? This year, I might add. Heaven is on this way for the Anglo-Saxon Berbers. And with that, I greeted you as I greeted you. And as always, my brothers and sisters in love. All right? So I'll leave the floor open for questions for those who have some. If not, then we'll digress. Brother Caldwell, you got any questions, my brother? Brother Archbishop, make sure you attach the template to this lecture, okay? Any questions, Brother Caldwell? Or did I answer every question that you had? Once again, last time, Brother Caldwell, did I answer all your questions, or do you have any questions that you need to ask right now before we close out? Thank you, Archbishop. You right on time, my brother. just like I said, just make sure you come to class. Make sure you watch the lessons. All right. Reach out to Archbishop Belmont by way of the chat line or by way of contacting the Third Temple English Church of England on our website and employ there. Okay. Our Archbishop said, follow the instruction on the website, the Third Temple English Church of England, and you'll make your way there. So once again, it was glad to have you. Please pass this message on to others. All right. If you know any Moors or any other religious group that needs this information, please pose this question to them. We allow them to come on our platform as we allowed you, or we can go to their platform and break bread. All right. Because in all actuality, you are in the upper room. All right. It's called Clifford's Inn. All right. When you get time, look it up. Clifford's Inn is an upper room where they all sit around and break bread. Right now, we're actually eating and drinking that spiritual food that we need to grow. All right. So with that, I love you, Brother Caldwell. Thanks for humbling yourself to this message. And I'm pretty sure by receiving this message and digesting this message, the transformation in your life will take place ASAP. All right. So with that,